Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 9 team selection where I've got 3 free transfers, I have a chip active and I need your help. If you did enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, let's dive into the Game Week 9 team selection. At the time of me recording, my team value is 101.8 million and I have 3 free transfers and 0.1 million in the bank. So the team value is going up very nicely, which is the silver lining into what has otherwise been a very disappointing season. Not much money in the bank, and therefore if I want to make upgrades, I need to downgrade elsewhere. But the 3 free transfers is a really nice position to be in. In an ideal world, yeah, I get to 5 free transfers, but as I've spoken about recently, I don't want to feel the need to do that just for the sake of doing it. Actually, on FPL Therapy this week, we spoke about the higher that you get with your free transfers, the more you want to keep rolling. Like when you have 1 free transfer, you're more tempted to almost use it and be aggressive. But when you get to 3, you're like, oh, I could probably get to 4. And then when you get to 4, you're probably thinking, do you know what, I could get to that elusive 5 free transfer. So I don't want to just keep rolling for the sake of it. The rank is in the bin, not having a good season at all. People always say, like, why don't you talk about your game week when you get a red arrow? I talk about my game week in my transfer plans video, my previous game week. So if you're interested in my game week review, that's at the start of the week in my transfer plans video. So it's not like I just don't talk about it when I have a bad week. It's just that it goes into that video instead. So we are optimistic, we are positive, and I am going to get myself a green arrow. I probably won't, but I'm going to try my best anyway. The team is currently rated at 95%. That has dropped down a little bit, but I'm still feeling pretty happy with the team. So, as always, I'll go through my team as things stand. I've not made any transfers because, in all honesty, I don't really make early transfers. And then we'll discuss some of the possible transfer options that I have. I could go anywhere from rolling to using all 3 of them. And that's not just for the content that I'm saying that. I have a few different paths that I can go down this week. So, the defensive situation really isn't that bad. The big glaring issue this week, I suppose, and it's not necessarily an issue, is that I do have double Arsenal defence against Liverpool. That is, in my opinion, not looking very likely for a clean sheet, not only because Liverpool have been very good this season and the likes of Mohamed Salah are playing very well, but also because Saliba won't be there for that game. I did make a mistake in one of my previous videos saying Saliba was out for 3 games. It's only the one because it wasn't violent conduct. So it's just this one game that they're without Saliba, but that is a huge loss. So on paper, they're probably going to concede. So I could bench Gabriel, and we'll discuss in a second. I do have the option to bench him. The other thing I could do is just maybe sell one of them and then start the other one. So I could sell Raya and go for a cheaper goalkeeper like Pickford, which I actually quite like, considering the fact that Raya's not making many saves at the moment, plus he's not keeping the clean sheets. I could sell Gabriel instead. Or if I sell Raya, I could bench Gabriel and I could have no Arsenal. So I've got the options of, do I just stick with both of them, start both of them, because we know Arsenal are fantastic defensively, or do I maybe sell one, or I could bench Gabriel? I'd love to know what you think down below in the comments. I do have the option to bench Gabriel because the defense is pretty strong. So this week, I need to start 3 of my 5 defenders, obviously, but they've all got justification to start or bench them, in all honesty, right? So Lewis, Gabriel, Aitnuri, Vandenberg, Davis. As of right now, unless I obviously get a leak that Lewis doesn't start, and there's a good chance given the minutes he played once again in the Champions League, unless I know that Lewis doesn't start, I'll obviously be playing him against Southampton at home. I do think this is the kind of game that you could see him get benched. He's not been benched much of at all this season, so maybe he continues to start, but this is certainly a game that you look at and you think, yeah, do you know what? This is one where he could be on the bench. So fingers crossed that isn't the case. So I basically need, in the other 2 positions, to start 2 of Gabriel, Aitnuri, Vandenberg, Davis, and then bench the other 2. I'm also very keen to get the benching order correct, because it could be important dependent upon if I keep certain attackers that might be injury doubts. So I would love to know in the comments, it's the big question that I'll ask you in this video, how would you rank Gabriel, Aitnuri, Vandenberg, and Davis from 1 to 4? And if there is a general consensus, maybe I'll trust you guys this week, because I tend to get benching decisions pretty wrong. I do have a little bit of trauma associated with Gabriel and benching him, because the 2 times that I've benched him this season, in fact the 3 times, was Aston Villa, in which he got a 6-pointer. It was then Spurs when I think he got that 15-pointer, and then Man City when he got the 7-pointer. Those are the 3 times I've benched Gabriel this season, all in relatively big games where I said a clean sheet isn't that likely. He kept a clean sheet in 2 of them and also scored in 2 of them as well. Now, I do think that Liverpool are better defensively from set pieces. I think the likes of Van Dijk and Konate will do a very good job on Gabriel, but he's still brilliant. And I think he actually scored against Liverpool last season in the away game. So He has that attacking threat, and we know that in these big games, Arsenal tend to play for corners a little bit more, especially with Saliba being out. Doubts around some of their attackers as well. I could see Arsenal really going all out on the set pieces, and Gabriel is so fantastic from them. So even if I expect him to concede, I kind of expect all of my defenders, bar hopefully Lewis, to concede. Ait-Nouri, Van den Berg, Davis, do I see clean sheets for them? Not really, not massively, which is why I've got Gabriel in the 11 at the moment, because he's also got really good goal threat. On Ait-Nouri, I would say Ait-Nouri, for me, has probably got the lowest chance of a clean sheet, maybe along with Davis. So I'm not expecting a clean sheet from him. But I would say of all of my defenders, maybe even more so than Lewis, I think he's the most attacking, and he's got really, really high goal threat. He's getting lots of touches in the box. He's almost averaging one shot in the box per 90, which is crazy for a defender. It's really, really good data. And when I watched him against City, I almost was thinking, do you know what? I wish I'd have started him against Man City. He was that attacking, bombing up and down that left wing, getting in crosses, getting touches in the final third as well. So I just think that Ait-Nouri is my most attacking defender. So again, if I'm not expecting clean sheets for any of my others, that's the way I'm leaning at the moment. Which means that I've got Van den Berg and Davis obviously playing against each other currently on my bench. The only thing I've changed since my transfer plans video is I've switched Davis and Van den Berg around because I just don't see a clean sheet for Ipswich. And I think Brentford scored 2+ goals. And as we've spoken about, if the team that they're playing against score 2+ goals, Davis isn't getting bonus points. He's probably only likely to get 1 assist. I'm not expecting 2 assists in a single game. So if he gets 1 assist, no bonus points, concedes 2 goals plus, we're probably looking at like a 4-pointer for Davis, whereas I think Van den Berg's probably got a greater chance for a clean sheet. So we might be looking at 6, 7, 8 points for him. My only concern is I don't know that Van den Berg starts every game. I still don't think he's fully nailed in that Brentford defence. So that would be the only worry, is that he doesn't start and then comes off the bench. So for that reason, I've not started Van den Berg. And also because I think Ipswich could score in this game. Brentford are not a particularly good defence. So hopefully that makes sense, all of that reasoning. These are the things going through my mind at the moment. It's why at the moment my defence is Raya, Lewis, Gabriel, Ait-Nouri. It looks honestly pretty stinky. Other than Lewis, who I still think there's a good chance he doesn't start, it's not a good defence this week. So I'm not expecting many points, but you just never know in FPL. Sometimes you have the perfect team on paper. Like last week, I thought my defence and team looked really good, and I didn't get anything from them. This week, I think they look terrible, so maybe I'm going to get lots of hauls, you never know. The only major sort of decision then in terms of like transfers that I need to think about is, do I want to sell one of my Arsenal defenders? But if I very briefly jump over to the official FPL site, they've got tricky fixtures over the next 3, like Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea. I'm not expecting many clean sheets. They might grab one, especially one in either game week 10 or 11 once Saliba's back. So there's the possibility there. And then from 12, I just think they've got some really nice fixtures from a defensive perspective. Like even that Forest game in 12, like Forest aren't a particularly good attack. They're very good defensively. So that looks immediately like a really solid chance for a clean sheet, Forest at home. And like this entire period here, I'd be very happy having Raya and Gabriel, even if they're not quite as good defensively as they were last season. Gabriel's got the attacking threat. They are still one of the better defences. And especially going into this busy December period, I just expect that double Arsenal defence will be very good because they play every game available. And it's the sort of crunch period of the season where you would expect them to just tighten up a little bit defensively. So I still think they are really good long-term holds. And so I wonder whether I just suffer a little bit in the short term. And if I'm that convinced that they're not good, then I could just bench Gabriel and just hope that he doesn't get his goals when I bench him this week. So there's the possibility there. I'd love to know what you would do with my defence in terms of selling players, in terms of benching decisions. That's the defence. Let's move on to the midfield 4. So guys, Sorare are running a series of free-to-play fantasy football competitions with money cannot buy prizes, and the one that I'm going to enter a team for today is VIP tickets to watch the El Clasico in May. The one that was on Tuesday was actually a trip with the AC Milan team for a European away trip, so you fly with the team, which is ridiculous. The one next Tuesday is another Italian one. This is a VIP Italian football experience. But like I said, I'm entering a team today to hopefully win me tickets, VIP tickets, by the way, to the El Clasico. But there are multiple prizes, and these are completely free to enter on Tuesday and Friday. So yeah, the team that I'm going to be entering is for this Friday. There will be a link in the description. It is 18+. Please play responsibly. But I'm very, very excited. I'm going to do it. I'm just putting it out there. I'm going to be the one that wins the VIP ticket. So I'm going to set a lineup. You can enter a lineup from various different competitions and leagues. It's not just the Premier League, but I honestly only watch the Premier League, really. So I'm going to enter Premier League players because those are the ones I know best. And of course, Man City play against Southampton. So believe it or not, despite Ederson not being the best in FPL, I'm probably going to go for Ederson for the clean sheet. And what we do in Sorare is we call stacking, also owning another defender for Man City, so that if the clean sheet comes in, we're looking very, very good. I could then continue and go for more Man City players. I'm tempted, though, to just play my main man, Bruno Fernandes, who's very good on Sorare, because even if he doesn't score or assist, he will get a lot of points due to the actions that he takes. I'm going to be captaining Erling Haaland in FPL and also Sorare as well, so he'll be coming in. And that can either go Palmer or Salah. Just because I don't own him in FPL, I might go Mohamed Salah. And I think without Saliba, Mohamed Salah could do something against Arsenal. So what I do is I simply press the captaincy armband. Captains get a 50% bonus. Captaining Haaland, that's my team. And then that is basically it. You'll see this pop up with a nice little sound effect there as well. And that will be the team, once my internet loads, that I'll be running. So if I just scroll down now all the way, you can see this is my best of Europe team. That is it. Also, for entering a team, just entering, you get given Essence, which will allow you to craft a limited card for free. You can obviously go on there and buy cards if you want. If you use my link, I think I get a little bit of a kickback as well. But you can also craft a limited card for free as well, just through getting the Essence for entering the competition. So please do check it out. Like I said, Tuesdays and Fridays. So if you missed this Friday deadline, you can enter the one next Tuesday. Some seriously good prizes. Link down below and check it out. So moving on to the midfield four, and I'm actually pretty happy with the midfield as things stand. In fact, three of them, if I were to wildcard this week, I would have, which is Rodgers, Mbeumo, Palmer, all of them with home fixtures this week. So very briefly, Rodgers, I still think is fantastic value. I didn't actually realise he's gone up to 5.4 million now, because I bought him for 5 million in like game week 2 or 3, I think it was. So I've got money tied up in him. So I can only sell him for 5.2. I didn't realise he'd gone up all the way up to 5.4. He's still great value at 5.4. And the fixtures in the long term, like you can see up to the Chelsea game in game week 13. But then it's Brentford, Southampton, Forest in 14, 15, 16. So right up until 16. Then even in 19, 20, 21, he's got Brighton, Leicester, Everton. Then 23, 24, 25, he's got West Ham, Wolves, Ipswich. If you can get away with benching him in the games against City in 17 and Arsenal in 22, and maybe Liverpool in game week 11, like if you've got a decent rotation going, you could just keep Rodgers long term. If he keeps increasing in price, though, it will reach a point where he's like a similar price to someone like Semenyo. And if he does keep going up, there will be a point when we say he's still good value, but he's not the standout at that price any longer. But obviously, because I've owned him this entire time, I've got money tied up. I'm perfectly happy having him. And whilst Bournemouth are not a bad defence, they're average. They're middling. They're about 9th or 10th for expected goals conceded. So it's a good fixture, not a great one. But Rodgers is just playing so exceptionally well. Even in the Champions League, he's brilliant to watch. The data is okay, but this is more of an eye test pick. And at least he's been returning in the past few games. So Rodgers, I'm absolutely fine keeping. In fact, he was the only player to return for me in game week 8. Mbeumo against Ipswich is a genuine captaincy shout this week. If I didn't have Haaland, Mbeumo would be my captain. He's currently my vice captain. And if I do play a certain triple captainship, he'll be my vice triple captain. That's how confident I am in the man in this fixture. He's been brilliant all season. The data's really good. He's on penalties. He takes some set pieces. I just think he's just a brilliant player and a brilliant option. And even at his price, and I think he might have had maybe the most price rises this season, or at least close. He's just been really, really, really solid. So I'm very happy having him. I'll be keeping him for the foreseeable future. I mean, the next fixtures coming up are really good. They're not even bad beyond that, but they do start to toughen up a little bit in game week 13. But yeah, Ipswich, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, Leicester. The next 5. It's one of the reasons that I'm looking at Johan Wissa in the attack, which we'll discuss a bit later. And Burmo's great. And then Cole Palmer, I obviously knew that last week was not an easy fixture. I didn't expect anything against Liverpool, and that's what happened. But Newcastle and United are much better fixtures for him. I would say it's the United one in game week 10 that we're really looking at as being the best of the next 4. But then from game week 12 onwards, I just want to have him in my team. I think he's the best captaincy option in game week 12 and game week 14. I think with Cole Palmer, you either enter now for Newcastle and United, or you probably wait until 12. You could go in 10, but then the next 2 fixtures will be United and Arsenal. So yeah, I don't mind this as an entry point if you don't have Cole Palmer. Like, if you're looking to sell Saka for Palmer, then that's an absolutely fine move. But I definitely think you could go for a Heung-min Son or even a Phil Foden for the next 3, and then look to move to Palmer in 12. I expect Palmer to return in the next 2, but I don't necessarily expect him to go nuclear and get 20, 25 points in a single game. Although last year against United, he scored a hat-trick, so you do never know. So those 3, all at home this week, all with okay fixtures. Very, very happy having the 3 of them. The other 2 midfielders I'm not overly happy with at the moment for different reasons, which is Dibbling and Saka. Just briefly on Dibbling, I knew what I was doing when I was picking him. It was to allow me to afford all of the other players I wanted. I knew that I was going to start him in Game Week 8 against Leicester. It absolutely flopped. He now won't be starting for me at all. There's a chance, I suppose, I could start him instead of Rodgers in Game Week 11 against Liverpool, so I could start Dibbling in that week. But at that point, I think there's a good chance I would have upgraded Dibbling. Of course, to upgrade Dibbling, I need to free up some funds. So we'll discuss when we look at my sort of transfer options that if I make a move this week that involves me freeing up funds, either this week or going into future weeks, I could then use that to upgrade Dibbling and just have a stronger 8 attackers going into that busy December period. I don't want to own Dibbling going into December because I want to offer myself the opportunity to really rotate my front line, which I won't be able to do when I've got Dibbling in the team. So yeah, I need to upgrade him, but maybe not a priority this week. And then Bukayo Saka. So the flag has been upgraded, you could say. Or the opposite, relegated, demoted. He's now got a dark orange flag. They're saying it's not particularly likely that he plays. I just don't know what to do in this situation because if I knew for a fact that he was absolutely fully fit, I think I would want to keep Bukayo Saka because I want him from 12 onwards. I don't want to use 2 transfers in the space of 3 or 4 weeks, taking him out and bringing him back in. And if you were to ask me, are Arsenal going to score in the next 3 games? I would say they are absolutely going to score in the next 3 games. I'd feel pretty confident of that. And therefore, Bukayo Saka, who is involved in the highest quantity and percentage of his team's goals, is going to be involved in those. He's on set pieces and he's on penalties. And we know often in these tight games, we've seen that in previous weeks, even like the Liverpool-Chelsea game, set pieces are very important for goals in these tight games, and also penalties. And could Saka score a penalty in the next 3 games? Yes, he could. And could he get a set piece? Yes. Immediately then, that's a goal and an assist, not even including open play actions and returns. And that's why I like Palmer and Saka and these players that are on corners, free kicks, penalties, because they've got so many routes to points. His data has been unbelievable this season. His output has been really good as well, especially in terms of assists. So I'm not saying that I expect Saka to go massive even if he was fit in the next 3, but I think there would be enough for me if I knew for a fact he was going to play that I might just hold him. The issue is Arteta is never going to tell us that. We've seen with Arsenal, they are happy to completely hide training pictures of players that are a doubt, especially going into the Liverpool game. Arteta is going to give us absolutely nothing. The reports that I've heard from a couple of reliable journalists and people that sort of leak team news on Twitter is that Saka is expected to be available, but everything that Arteta has said is that he doesn't expect Saka to be available. But we don't think that Arteta... Why would Arteta be honest? Why would Arteta come out and say, yeah, we think Saka will be available? Why not play the mind games with Slot and with Liverpool? And I've said before that, in fact, when Arteta is positive about a player, they usually miss out. And when he's negative about a player, they are usually fit. And we saw that actually in Game Week 8, that Saka, he was really positive. He was like, yep, he's progressing well. We'll see today. And he missed out. Now that he's saying Saka's not progressing well, he's not in training, I would expect Saka to maybe be available. So I don't know. Let me know down below what you think. Maybe at the time of you watching this or on a Friday, we do get a definitive update, in which case, great. There is still justification to sell him, even if he was fully fit, for the likes of Son, Foden, or if you don't have Palmer, then Palmer as well, or even try and find the funds to upgrade to Salah. There are lots of really good options for the next 3. And in terms of all of the premiums, you could argue that Saka has the most difficult fixtures in combination over the next 3 weeks. But after Liverpool, it is Newcastle and Chelsea. And they're not bad. And Chelsea have been better defensively than people give them credit for. But they're not bad fixtures. He could score, but they're still not easy fixtures. Then he actually goes into Forest in Game Week 12. And Forest, for all they are not particularly a great attack, as I spoke about earlier, they're a very, very good defence. So the next 4 aren't ideal for Saka. So I am wondering, do I just go for it? Do I just go for it, Saka to Son or Saka to Foden, attack the fixtures, and then use another transfer to bring him back in? Because I do have 3 free transfers. So even if I use a transfer this week to remove Saka, and then I have to book in a transfer later to bring him back, I'll still have free transfers outside of that to use because the team is in a very good spot. So that's kind of how I'm thinking at the moment. I would say, let's say we get news that Saka's fit. I would say I'm 60% likely to keep, 40% likely to sell. If we get no definitive update, I would say I'm like 80% likely to sell him. I would need a really strong, serious, definitive update that Saka's going to play and he's available, because I can't keep risking a player at 10 million who's going to keep falling in price if he doesn't play, not playing. Like, I do have a decent bench option in like Vandenberg or Davis, but I would much rather have Heung-min Son or Foden this week than one of those defenders. So yeah, I need an update. As of right now, I don't have anything. So let's just pencil in the possibility it would be one of Son or Foden in for Saka. Let me know in the comments who you would prefer out of Son and Foden. And in the next section, I'll discuss that in a bit more detail. So that's the midfield four. I could end up using potentially as many as 2 transfers there to sell Saka and upgrade Dibbling. I could maybe just sell Saka, or I could also see myself just rolling. Let's move on to the front line. So moving on to the front three, and we have Solanke, Haaland, and Cunha. And yes, my triple captainship is active. By the way, you can reverse this, so I'm not committing to the triple captain. But on the official site, it is active. You can, I think it's the bench boost and the triple captain you can cancel at any point throughout the week once you've activated them. The free hit and the wild card you cannot cancel. So yeah, I might change my mind. Let me know down below in the comments if you're considering triple captain, which we'll discuss in a second. On the other 2 players, Solanke and Cunha. Solanke I've not been impressed with in the last 2 weeks, but the 2 weeks prior to that, I kept saying that he had the most big chances in the league. In game weeks 5 and 6, he had 7 big chances. And then in game weeks 7 and 8, he's had 0 big chances and I think 1 shot in total. He's just not been involved at all in terms of goal threat. He seems to turn like an absolute truck. I thought he was actually quite a dynamic player at Bournemouth at points, but he's basically dropping deep to help with the build-up play. And then when Spurs counter really quickly, Solanke just can't cover that distance quick enough. Like, he's found on the halfway line, and then the likes of Son, Werner, Johnson, Kulusevski, they all absolutely bomb forward, and then Solanke's just left on the halfway line trying to catch up. And as a result, he's just not getting many goal-scoring opportunities. I still think he'll score goals, and over the next 3 against Palace, Villa, Ipswich, I still think he's a decent option. But he's so expensive that if I do want to free up funds for whatever reason to make another move, or I'm just not sure about him, there are so many really good cheap forwards. Wissa and Jimenez in particular. Wissa against Ipswich at home feels like differential dreamland. He got minutes off the bench in game week 8. I'm so tempted to just make that move because even without Price, I just think Wissa goes absolutely nuclear this week. I could really see him hauling. And Jimenez has been in such a nice run of form. With Andreas missing the penalty in game week 8, I could see Jimenez being the one to take the penalty, the next penalty. So there is temptation to sell Solanke, but I also think it's a little bit knee-jerk. Like, only a couple of weeks ago, I was saying Solanke's a great option. Maybe I need to give him a little bit longer. The plan was always to at least give him the Crystal Palace game. And then if I'm still not impressed, then against Villa, I could look to sell him. But of course, then after that, he does have Ipswich himself. So yeah, Solanke's probably staying at the moment, but there's definitely the possibility if I want to make a move elsewhere that I use the Solanke spot to downgrade because that's the most obvious position in my team. The other player is Matheus Cunha. Really happy to have him. Lots of others looking at Wolves assets this week. I've already got 2 of them in 8 Nuri and Cunha. This is the most difficult game, I would say, of the bunch. And with Van Hecke back, I don't expect them to be as weak defensively. But I still think it's a game that could suit Cunha. And I'm expecting him to still get chances. And for Wolves to get chances to score as well. Brighton are, in a similar way to kind of Bournemouth, they've got very similar underlying defensive data. They're middling defences. They're not fantastic and they're not poor. So I'm not expecting a monster haul for Cunha, but I definitely think, given the way that my team's set up, he's going to be starting for me, and I'm very happy to have him moving forward. So the only other decision and thing that I'm thinking about, of course, I'm going to have Haaland. Haaland will be my captain. Is that Haaland triple captain? And I'll just go to this graphic here. I'm not going to repeat it in too much detail because this is the graphic that I used in yesterday's Game Week preview video. So if you want a more in-depth chat around the pros and cons of triple captaining Haaland, go and watch yesterday's Game Week preview video after this one. So the premise of why people are playing it in a single game week is, of course, that there might not be as many double game weeks this season. Just due to the way that the scheduling has happened, we might potentially only have 2 doubles. And as a result, you've got 4 chips, free hit, bench boost, triple captain, and maybe mystery chip that you might want to play in double game weeks. So lots of people are saying this season, triple captain, single game week makes sense. And I think it does as well. And if you are looking at fixtures to target, it is the Southampton one. Now, the real con of triple captain Haaland is he's not in a great run of form in the Premier League. They've got no Rodri, probably no KDB, and Foden hasn't fully found his feet since coming back from injury himself. So when you put all that together, no, this is not the best time probably to triple captain Haaland, and that's why I have the chip active now. Because I sat down and I thought about this. I don't really want to triple captain Haaland in a week where everyone's triple captaining Haaland, because yeah, I might end up getting the most points. And objectively, if it's a week where most people are playing the triple captain, it's probably the best week to play it. But football and FPL is not played on paper. And I always say sometimes your team will look good on paper, but they don't end up performing. And I feel like I always tend to triple captain, or most years, I triple captain a player in what is on paper the best week to triple captain. And it never tends to pan out. And I wouldn't have triple captain Haaland against Ipswich in game week 2, but that worked out perfectly. And I know KDB was fit, etc., etc., but that almost gives me more reasoning to triple captain Haaland this week because far fewer people will be tempted to do it. And with the chip, you want to get the most points possible with the chip. That is the idea of the triple captain. It's not to be different. It's to get the most points possible with your chip. But why not go in a week where not many other people are as tempted? Because it's Southampton at home, right? They are the worst defence in the league comfortably for me. When you take into account, yes, they've got the second worst defensive data, but they've had okay fixtures as well. And when I watch the games, I feel like it's a game that Haaland could absolutely feast. In fact, City won 5-0 in the Champions League. They are projected, according to the bookies, to get more goals against Southampton than they were in that Champions League game. I'm not saying they will go out there and get 6 or 7, but it feels like the kind of game that they could. My only concern would be if I think that Haaland's minutes would be limited. That's the only thing that's making me doubt it. That I spoke about City have 7 games in 20 days. Like, if there is a game to bring Haaland off in the 60th or 70th minute, it could be this one. I don't think it will happen because he looks absolutely fine from a fitness perspective. And I think they'll want to get his confidence back. So I think if Haaland gets 2-3 goals early, I've got a feeling Pep could keep him on the pitch. And we know that once Haaland gets 2 goals, he often gets 3. I just think there is a chance for 2, 3, 4 goals here for Haaland. And if I think that, and not many other people, or less people than you would expect that potentially are looking at triple captaining Haaland against Southampton, I'm tempted to go there. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand at the moment. It's like, yes, on paper, it is not the best week to do it, especially if KDB's not fit and available, and without Rodri, and with Haaland blanking 3 games in a row and getting 0 big chances in those 3 games. Like, on paper, it's not the best week to do it in terms of Haaland's form, but the fixture's absolutely there, and I like the fact that far fewer people are considering doing it because of said form. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. In terms of percentage chance of me playing the chip, I would still say it's like close to 50-50, but let's say I'm 60% likely to play it and 40% likely to not play it. If we thought that KDB could be fit to play any part in that game, it would make me even more tempted. And Phil Foden looked much better in the Champions League playing in that number 10 role. So if Foden starts again, firstly, I'm considering Foden myself, but I also think this makes Haaland a better option. And I think him in the number 10 role creating against Southampton could be a really nice combination there. So I'll leave it there. Let me know down below in the comments if you're tempted to triple captain Haaland. I promise it wasn't just a knee-jerk based on the Champions League, but it was nice to see him scoring goals again. Let's now take a look at my possible transfer options. So guys, I've spoken about most of these throughout my team, but just to recap the idea that I have behind which players I could sell and who I'm potentially looking at bringing in, I do have the 3 free transfers and 0.1 in the bank. So I think apart from rolling the transfer, the most obvious transfer that I could make is selling Saka for one of Son or Foden using the 1 free transfer, which would still give me 2 this week to use elsewhere if I want to, or I could then have 3 free transfers going into game week 10, and I could still get to that elusive 5 free transfers by game week 12. I would then be probably looking to bring Saka back in, and if I just skip over to the Fantasy Football Hub website, and by the way, there is a link down below to get a 7-day free trial and 30% off if you use the link in the description, their recommended transfer is to sell Saka for Son based on their projected points, mainly because Son is obviously predicted to get far more points this week because Saka is a doubt. But also beyond that, you can see in game week 10 and 11, the green line on that graph, Son is projected to get more points. It starts to switch again in game week 12, but I can, of course, make a transfer in game week 12. So for the next 3 weeks, Son is projected to get quite a few more points than Saka. So at the moment, I would say that if I had to go for the transfer that is most likely, it is Saka to Son or Foden. Son is the smarter play given the next 3 fixtures and given his minutes and given probable penalties. But Foden against Southampton at home is calling my name, and I knew it would. I knew even with the lack of form and the lack of minutes and the lack of certainty about everything to do with Phil Foden and the lack of data this season, everything is pointing towards Foden not being a good transfer. But I knew as soon as I saw Foden against Southampton at home and I had the possibility to move to him, I would be extremely tempted. Ignore the siren in the background. Option 2 is to sell Gabriel to one of Porro or Gvardiol. I'm less keen to do this because I think long-term Gabriel's a great pick. I've got money tied up in him quite a bit now. And I don't like using defender transfers to try and attack the upside as much. But when the 2 options that you could look to bring in are Porro or Gvardiol, is very tempting. And I think I'd actually be more tempted by Gvardiol given that he got a rest in the Champions League. We're expecting him to start that Southampton at home game. If Lewis is benched and they play someone like a Kanji or Stones in that right-back role instead, Gvardiol could be even more attacking. I could see like when I say a monster scorer, I'm talking like 20 plus points from Gvardiol, because if he keeps a clean sheet and gets involved in a couple of attacking returns, he could reach that. And we know that his ball striking ability is exceptional. So it's not just that he's a defender playing in an attacking position. He has the technical ability of most attackers in the Premier League. I truly mean that. Like, that goal that he scored on his weak foot cutting in from left back. I'm very tempted to do Gabriel to Gvardiol, but I just feel like it's not points chasing as such, but maybe just trying to get a little bit overly aggressive with the transfers and trying to predict too much. But then I really do back Gvardiol to do very well this week if he starts, and I don't necessarily back Gabriel as much. Even over the next three, like Bournemouth and Brighton, not great for Gvardiol, but I prefer him to Gabriel's Newcastle and Chelsea. So yeah, I'm very tempted to make that move. I could even make both of those. I could do Saka to Son and then Gabriel to Gvardiol. I obviously couldn't go Foden and Gvardiol because I have Lewis and Haaland. So option 1 and 2, not losing faith in Arsenal, but just losing them for the next 3 weeks and then maybe looking to bring them back in. The other two options involve multiple transfers. Option 3 is just strengthening my 8 attackers. So selling Solanke down to Wissa or Rao. And then the other move I don't have to make this week, but I could then sell Dibbling for Garnacho or McNeil. I have up to 6.3 million if I go for Wissa. I think I have up to 6.5 million if I go for Raul Jimenez. I would be more tempted to go for Wissa because I just think he's great for this week. And then I guess if I make the Dibbling move this week, it would give me a bit of a benching headache. So maybe I just keep the money in the bank with the eye to then upgrade Dibbling the week after to maybe buy someone that rotates quite well with Rodgers. But then if I'm doing that, I just think, do I just give Solanke one more week and then decide next week if I want to remove him? It just means that I lose that Wissa against Ipswich at home fixture, which I think is definitely there to target. It feels unnecessary, the transfers there, with option 3 is how I would view it. I know people will look at Solanke and say, yeah, he's a good transfer out, and he probably is, but it also feels like an unnecessary use of 2 free transfers this week. It's like I'm using my transfers just because I've got them. Option 4 is probably like the worst set of transfers, I would say, although people probably look at it like it, and I do love the set of 3 transfers, and it's selling Saka to buy Salah, and the only way that I can do this, that I can see at the moment, is either selling Palmer as well, which I don't want to do, or downgrading Solanke all the way down to someone like Archer, but then that gives me Archer and Dibbling as my attackers, or making 3 transfers. So this set of 3 transfers, as of right now, gives me 0 in the bank. So if there are any price changes, I won't be able to afford it. But then I could just change Pickford or Wissa to different players. But the idea is to do Saka to Salah. I downgrade Solanke to a cheap forward like Wissa or Raul Jimenez. I then need to make one more move. That other move could be Gabriel to Pedro Porro. I cannot afford Gvardiol. Or it could be something like Raya to Pickford or Raya to Sanchez. Overall, I would much rather have Wissa, Pickford, and Salah this week than I would Solanke, Raya, and Solanke, Raya, and Saka. Even, I would say, over the next 2 to 3 weeks, I would prefer the combination on the right. And if I've got 3 free transfers, there is some temptation to just make those 3 moves. Don't get bogged down on it being Pickford if you don't like Pickford. Don't get bogged down on it being Wissa if you don't want it to be Wissa. It could be Raul Jimenez, Sanchez, and Salah. I just think with these 3, Wissa and Pickford have such great fixtures over the next 5. Home fixtures this week, and then Salah against a Saliba-less Arsenal team. I don't mind it. And then he's got Brighton, Villa, Southampton. I'm super tempted, honestly. So I would say, in order of likelihood, it probably still is option 1 the most likely, option 2 and then 4 very similar, and then option 3, I would say, in likelihood of how likely I am to do it. If I just chuck it back to my team then, if I chuck it back to my team, got there in the end, what would you do with this team? I think most people would say, Ross, don't overthink it. Saka to Son, roll the other 2 transfers, go into Game Week 10 with 3 free transfers. The team is looking decent. Like if Son was in that Saka position, it's a strong team. Double Arsenal defense isn't ideal, but probably not a major issue that I need to address right now, considering not many teams keep clean sheets. Like, would I be surprised if City concede to Southampton? No, I wouldn't. So that's the team. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your plans are as well. And come on, we need a green arrow this week. So guys, there we have it. That is my Game Week 9 team selection. Hopefully you did enjoy. And if you did, please do smash that like button and make sure to subscribe as well. Until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.